Time now on the Sports Daily to catch up with Matt Welsh from betsy.com.au. Matt, a very good morning to you.
Good to be with you.
Great to have a chat to you again, Matt. A fair bit to unpack from a Turnbull which had plenty of meat on the bone in regards to it.
Yeah, it certainly did. Fantastic day of racing, first and foremost. And Melbourne weather, we know how good the Melbourne weather is. It really turned it on for Saturday. There's probably nothing more fickle than the Melbourne weather, but we had a rare good one on Saturday, and the racing on the track matched it as well. It was a terrific day, and a day that's often called moving day, and I think a number of horses put their hands up for what's ahead this spring.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we might cast our eye forward to a Cox Plate then, and Sir Delius, he's going that way. He's absolutely airborne. With Tab Touch, he's equal favourite with Via Sistina at 3.10. What did you make of his performance, first of all?
Oh, it was just terrific. I mean, he's just a fantastic horse. He's got so much potential. I think he's also about $3.50 for a Melbourne Cup at the moment, which is just unheard of a month out from the race. But it's going to take a really special performance to beat him in the Melbourne Cup. But first and foremost, the likes of Via Sistina, Aliana, and I suppose to a lesser extent Treasure the Moment, look like they sort of had a mortgage on the Cox Plate after their very good first up runs in Wink Stakes and Memsey Stakes. But now, rightfully, Sir Delius is heading towards the top of that market because he was just too good for them at 2,000 metres on Saturday. Sat a little bit wide early, but Craig Williams got him into a beautiful spot in the run and he powered away from them. The one little question mark I have over Antino, Via Sistina and Aliana is we touched on how slowly a run race that Maccabi Diva was leading in. All three of them potentially half a run short on Saturday. Antino peaked on his run. He looked like he was going to probably put them away on the top of the turn and peaked on his run. I thought half yours, Via Sistina had every chance to reel in the leaders. And Aliana, I think, raced like a horse who's looking for 2,400 metres now. So I wonder if Chris Waller potentially diverts to a Caulfield Cup with her. Problem is she's got to try and beat half yours, who went straight past her on Saturday and is airborne. And that was as good a Caulfield Cup trial as you see from half yours, who was in poorly at the set weights and penalties, but he just hit the line beautifully for 2,400 metres in 2 weeks' time. So, look, really good race. I think Sir Delius has put his hand up. He's the one they've got to beat this spring. Jury's out on Via Sistina. Antino was good. He had to sit wide, but it wasn't a strong tempo. And then, as I said, I think Aliana's potentially looking for 2,400 now.
Aesthetically, it looked outstanding from half yours, Matt. What did the figures say?
Yeah, no, it was a terrific performance. I mean, it wasn't a fast-run race. I actually thought he'd settle a little bit handier like he did in the Naturalism, the start prior from that good gate. But, look, got a mile back. And as I said, on the numbers and visually, it was as good a Caulfield Cup trial as you could possibly want for. So, a remarkable story because I think Tony and Calvin McAvoy only bought this horse earlier in the year, a tried horse they bought online from the Mars stable. Middle of winter, he was considered a wet tracker. He was up there in Queensland, went around in the Caloundra Cup. I've backed him first up at Sandown, I think it was, from memory, back in March, and he couldn't even win a benchmark 64 at that stage. But now, rightfully at the top of Caulfield Cup market. So it just shows you can find a good horse anywhere. And well done to Tony and Calvin McAvoy, who identified this horse, bought him, and now Connections are reaping the benefits.
Yeah, $3.50 with Tab Touch for a Caulfield Cup, and they had a pretty good day, Tony and Calvin McAvoy, because they might have the Victorian Derby favourite too after what happened there on Saturday. We might actually touch on that, Matt, just quickly. Options, is he probably the number one seed in a year going out to this distance with 3-year-olds where it might be a little bit thin at the top?
Maybe. Look, it was a good win. He had the blinkers going off. Race dominated by the swoopers, with Miwa also coming from the tail. Probably dominated by the better stayers, to be honest. But the horse that I want to follow out of the race is Arabian Prince. Nick Kent is known for doing the slightly unusual with his horses. He's not the most conventional trainer, and this horse debuted at 1,800 metres in the winter as a 2-year-old and ran very well behind Bucklew. And then again, he was first up without a trial on Saturday. He hammered the line from the back of the field, and he looks, to me, the strongest of the stayers out of that race. So If I'm following one out of the Superimpose, I'm definitely following Arabian Prince. I think he can turn the tables on all of those horses on Saturday. But I think at this stage, the Derby is wide open, and there's the potential for a horse to emerge from nowhere. And I touched on it a couple of weeks ago. You know, at the end of the day, a lot of these horses ultimately won't get 2,500 metres, and a lot of them ultimately aren't stayers. But to me, Arabian Prince is the one that really has a lot of potential.
Matt, how did you walk away from the Bart Cummings on the weekend?
Well, having back Gilded Water, I walked away sick. It was in incredible race shape. They went about 20 lengths above standard to the 800-metre mark. So you could visually see that the Gilded Water was leading by a space. I think set up about probably a 7 or 8 length lead in the mid-stages, and he was just going too quick. Jamie Mellon said post-race that she struggled to control the horse, tried to get him to ease, but he wouldn't. Whichever way you skin it, it was a huge effort just to hang on and run third. Probably the challenge they've got now is, has that run taken too much out of him? He's still not qualified for a Melbourne Cup, so he's going to have to go to a Geelong Cup or a Moonee Valley Gold Cup and try and win one of those golden ticket races. And you know, they're only 9 and 12 days away, so it's going to be tough for Kieran Maher and the team to piece this bloke back together after that on Saturday, because that was just a torrid run. Question the form outside of him out of the race. I mean, Valiant King went around 60-1. Maybe the blinkers going on the first time just made a big difference, but I think he also got a race shape to suit. And you look at second, Torrenzino was up on that speed and ended up sticking on and running second. So it was a pretty good effort from him, but he went around 70-1. So I'm a little bit jury out on that Bart Cummings form. The one thing I will note is Revelaro got into a genuinely run race at 2,500 metres for the first time, and he looked to really struggle over the concluding stages. I know he's going to drop in weight heading towards a cup, but I'm still a little bit concerned about him at 2,000 metres plus. So it was an interesting Bart Cummings, but Gilded Water certainly the talking point out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, the Danehill, McGaw won, sort of muddies the waters a little bit even more going towards a Coolmore.
Yeah, well, the breeders won't be 100% happy with a gelding knocking off a filly and the colt's not there in the finish of the Danehill. I'll be hoping it reverses in the Coolmore, but a great story. Emily and David Brown, who train this horse, they're wonderful people. I've met them a few times and always enjoy chatting to them at the races. So great to see them have a really big race success on Saturday. The horse, of course, misnamed due to a spelling mistake. He was meant to be named after Richie McCaw, the famous All Blacks captain, and they accidentally put a G there instead of a C. But he was good. And full credit here to Damien Lane and Jamie Mott. They rode McGaw and My Gladiola, who ran 1-2. They were the two who went to the outside towards the outside rail. All the other jockeys sort of meandered through the middle of the track. It was clear by the end of the day that the outside section was the best part of the track. So they did well to stick to their guns and stay out there, and ultimately they fought out the race, McGaw and My Gladiola. I thought Tentris was good in third. Nice little pipe opener. I think it'll be very hard to beat going forward out of this race. The disappointment was Rosberg. He was boom horse. Clinton McDonald had been talking him up. He was beaten 10 lengths. He was found to have some shin soreness post-race. But it's also noteworthy late in betting that he was really soft on the exchange. I think he ended up starting nearly $5.20. So I don't know if it was a poor parade or what he was doing when he went out on the track. But, yeah, he was disappointing, and he'll now go for a spell. So hopefully he bounces back in the autumn. But I just don't think it's the strongest group of 3-year-olds at the moment heading towards that Coolmore. And, you know, McGaw and My Gladiola certainly deserve to be right towards the top of markets.
Seems to be a common theme, Ree, the 3-year-old bats this season. What about the return of War Machine, and can he play a part in the Everest?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think all things being equal, they're potentially all running for second behind Ka Ying Rising, who I think we see trial tomorrow morning. But this was a really dominant win from War Machine. I mean, for mine, to date, he'd been sort of probably a better 1,400-metre horse, but he was trucking in behind them at the 300-metre mark. Blake Shin had a lap full of horse and put them away so effortlessly. So wonderful return from him. It's obviously a different scenario heading up to a high-pressure Everest around a bend. where he's probably going to spot them a reasonable start. But he deserves his spot in the race in a year that the Everest has thinned out outside the top end of it. And whatever he does thereafter, I imagine they'll probably campaign on after the Everest. He'll find more races that he can win, probably back to the straight for a VRC sprint on the last day of the carnival. He's done a wonderful job since joining Ben Will and JD Hayes, and it's also a credit to the work that Mike Moroney had done preparing this horse through his younger years. He's an absolute ripper. And
leave us with a horse to follow in the last.
Oh, Shadizi finished ninth. It was one of the best nights you'll ever see. The instructions to Craig Williams were to ride this horse quietly, and boy, oh boy, he did that. He restrained the horse out of the gates. He got over racing terribly at the back of the field off a slow tempo. But he went to the line with a lap full of horse. He could have easily been in the finish had they pressed forward out of the barriers. I suspect they're probably going to go to a mile next start with this former French galloper. And, yeah, I think he'll be awfully hard to beat next time out. So it might say ninth in the form guide, guys, but it should have said 1, 2 or 3 for mine. I think Shadizi will be very, very hard to beat and one to follow.
All right, race number 10 there at Flemington, number 12. For those with Tab Touch Black Book accounts, go and select Shadizi and put him into the Black Book. Thank you very much for your time, Matt, after a day that was very tough for the Victorian racing industry.
Yeah, very tough with the loss of Warren Huntley on Sunday, who I think you guys had on your program, or certainly had on the channel many times. I worked with Warren for a number of years, including managing him at racing.com, and you just wouldn't find a better person, someone who cared for his family more than Warren. And he'd been through a lot of challenges with his daughter over the last 4 or 5 years, and he just was an incredible person, a devoted person, and such a trustworthy, honest, nice gentleman. So really sad to lose Warren yesterday, and send my condolences to all the family. It'd be a very tough time for them.
Really well said. Matt, thank you very much. We'll chat next week.